right, welcome everybody to the final panel for the Instructional Development College and University Interest Group. Today we are lucky enough to have Mike Jones, who is the Director of E-Learning at Del Mar College and has spent the last, 2.5, 3 years
Almost
now?
3 years.
Almost 3 years now, getting Del Mar up to speed, not only with how training is developed for the course to make sure that we're compliant with SACs, but also make sure that we're compliant with federal law in terms of making sure that the courses have universal design principles in them. And so today he's going to share just a small piece of the knowledge that he's been gathering over the last 3 years that will be inevitably useful for anybody teaching online, hybrid, or even web-enhanced courses. So everybody, round of applause for Michael Jones.
Thank you. And I would like this to be interactive, so bring in the questions anytime we have them. Again, Del told you, my name is Mike Jones, and for the past 29 years, I have been a speech teacher. 3 years ago, I was doing a report to the provost at our institution on December 7th, and he looked at me kind of funny and said, "Hey, I have a great idea. How would you like to be the director of distance learning?" I said, "Are you talking about next August?" He said, "No, I'm talking about next week." And when I went into that next meeting, a week later, I went into the other vice president's office and said, "Oh, by the way, we're doing our SACT, which is the accreditation. It's a 5-year report, and we put together a 5-person team to do that project, and you're 1/5 of that team." And so suddenly I went from being a classroom teacher to suddenly having to learn the role of accreditation and distance learning throughout an institution. And so as we go through our presentation today, we're going to bring in a lot, kind of touch base a little bit. I've given you a couple of handouts, what we'll refer to as we go, and I'll explain some of that to you. So hopefully you're a little bit more prepared and the fear won't strike you as much as it struck me when I got into this. Okay, so I'm going to start out by giving you 3 numbers. 22, 39, 42. What do those numbers mean to you?
42 is our core.
Okay, that's your core, okay. Yeah, it really does mean a lot, right? And so we start spreading out. So let's look at these for a moment. 22. It is from the 2014 U.S. Department of Education Audit Report on Distance Learning. In this report, it came out that the federal government gave $22 million in financial aid in a 1-year period to 8 institutions to support the distance learning of 42,000 students. In that 1 year, 0 credits were earned. So they started looking a little closer and said, we are providing so much funding into distance learning, yet we're not getting a return on that. And they said, if this has happened only with 8 institutions, what's happening nationwide? And so because of that, the scrutiny over distance learning has dramatically increased. And the proof that we are following the guidelines is being asked for almost daily. And the guidelines are constantly changing because, as we know with technology, if you buy a new phone, if you just waited the next day, you would have had the next edition of it, the next version. And we're doing the same thing with distance learning. Policies cannot keep up with it as fast as it's growing. At our own institution, we went from being 16% of the contact hours to 31% of the contact hours within about a 3-year period. And it is continuing to grow. So as we go to our next number, 39, because we all think our classes are great, right? We do it, we do a good job of how they're designed, it works. Well, 39, this was the City College of San Francisco. City College of San Francisco was fined $39 million. And why? Because there was no evidence of student engagement in their college's LMS system. Other than showing that the student enrolled in the class and received a grade for the class, there was no evidence whatsoever that the student was in the class. And why do you think that is? Any guesses?
Because they were using other.
They were using other platforms.
Extra.
They were using third-party platforms to where all the student data was being hosted on servers from different publishers. Some people had their information in their Google Drive, some people had it elsewhere, but there was no way for the state to track what was happening and to show the evidence that the students were receiving the contact hours and covering the content required for the course. 42. As you read the trend now, there's a big number at the end of these, right? 42, there was a college in Ohio who was fined $42 million, and that was because there was no evidence of faculty engagement in over 59% of their courses. Those courses, because of that, were reclassified as correspondence courses, and correspondence courses do not receive federal financial aid. So it gets a little frightening when we start looking at, well, we have to prove this, and what is a correspondence course? Because when I was coming up the system, a correspondence course is where I wrote a letter to somebody and eventually they would send it back. Well, now with online learning, if an instructor, I'm so sorry.
You knew that was going to happen.
It does happen.
Yeah.
If an instructor front loads a course and they don't engage with the students throughout the semester, except for that occasional email response, then the instructor is not present in the course. So therefore, there's nobody teaching it and the students are on their own. And the federal government will not provide financial aid for that. And so when we start looking at the way our courses are set up, how many courses on our institutions are set up to where the faculty members don't really engage? Because the criteria is substantive engagement from the faculty. That means that it's more than just responding to an email or posting an announcement. This is engagement with the students. This is providing content to them on a regular basis. This is being involved in their discussion boards. It is being present in this. And there are several institutions where faculty members say, hey, I want to teach online so I don't have to do anything except just turn on the computer every once in a while. And that has dramatically changed. And because of this. And so when we start looking at all these funding levels, it does become a big concern. So when we look at, well, who's asking for this information? Well, there are several entities who are, look at this, and my PowerPoint just jumped for just a moment. Let me relaunch. Okay. As of course with technology, because I'm put in charge of it, I'm the one who has issues with it.
That's all right, it makes us feel better.
It does, doesn't it? Okay, here I am right here. Okay. And that's one of the things too, PowerPoint changed, and they constantly change. So, okay, well, we're not going to work the way that you were accustomed to anymore. We're going to do this different. Okay, so let me just relaunch this just very, very quickly. And I know this is great on video, so I'm hoping they can edit this part out.
Seriously,
Okay.
it does make us feel better.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
I've had that
Okay.
happen so many times, or where they put a new screen in.
All right, so here we are. The entities that are requiring evidence. They're asking, well, who's telling me I have to do this? You know, one of the issues that we're having at our institution is when we say this needs to be done, they are asking us, was this in our policy manual? I said, no, it's federal law. Yeah, but is it in our policy manual? Because if it's not in our policy manual, why do we have to do it? Why can't somebody else? Because it's federal law. You know, so some of these issues, helping people to understand the seriousness of this. So first of all, we do have those criteria that are established by our own institutions. We have to make sure our courses follow the policies because our policies are connected to higher levels and not just somebody made them up. You know, one of the criteria for SACS accreditation is you must have the evidence to show how you followed the procedures that align with your institutional policies. Well, if you don't have policies established, there are no procedures, therefore no evidence. And these are the issues that we're finding in distance learning because nobody really thought it out or it's growing so fast they haven't been able to develop those policies because policies don't happen overnight. Policy development is usually a 1 to 2 year process for many institutions. And the issues have changed constantly. So we have, again, there's the institutional change. Then the next group is that we have is the, come on, let's do this again. Get away from there, stop doing that to me. The Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. And then we have the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on Colleges that we hear about SACS. Not the SACS they think of in San Antonio, the San Antonio College, but this is the commission. The way this works is the Department of Education, which is actually just going to pull them up. I'll pull up the whole list here. The Department of Education is the one that lays the framework from the federal level. Higher education agencies then take that framework and they come up with the criteria to make sure the institutions follow federal guidelines that are established by the legislative and the different entities up there. Then they give the state the license to practice in their state. So that's what the co-board does. They license our institutions to offer degrees and educational courses in the state of Texas that align with the federal level. It's just like you can go to medical school in another state, but you have to have a license in your state to practice. So it's the same thing with education. Now, this one that's listed up here also is the NC-SARA. This is the National Commissions for the State Authors or Reciprocity Agreement. What was happening is that's just state authorization reciprocity agreement. That's what the other A is. In the past, if your institution wanted to provide distance learning courses outside of the state of Texas, you would have to first have your course evaluated by the Higher Education Coordinating Board of that particular state, and then evaluated by the other institutions in that state to say, yes, this aligns with the criteria that we require for our students. Then you can go through the process of allowing a student from that state to enroll in your course. That gets very expensive, very time consuming. It can sometimes be anywhere from a 6 to 12 month process to get a course approved to be able to offer it outside of your borders. And so there was a group that got together, the Commission on the State Authorization Reciprocity Agreement, that they have said now if your institution aligns with all of these criteria, and if your courses align with all of these criteria that are not just SACS criteria, but are aligned with the entire nation's coordinating boards, the variety of them, then there is the possibility that you can give that course. And so every state has to join it, and then every institution has to be licensed by the state, again, to be a provider. And so with the community college level, several community colleges are starting to work into this right now. Several of our four-year institutions are doing this, but we don't have a lot of our community colleges yet. But there is a possibility very soon through one organization that they're going to be all of our community colleges in at the same time. That terrifies me. Having to be the person who is checking off on the accreditation at my institution, if I know I have this group of courses that are not following national-wide best practices, and those are going out there, that comes back on our institution. And it comes back on my staff, it comes back on the faculty that are my colleagues. And so it frightens me that we're not at that level because we don't have the evidence to support that we do. Okay? And that's something we're working to develop. The other two entities on here, again, the Department of Education, they are laying the groundwork, but they're also connected to a lot of the financial aid, the Title IV funding, and what our students receive. And then, of course, there's the Department of Justice, and that is dealing specifically with Section 504, which is the disability accommodations we provide for our students. And then Section 508 is how we use technology to meet those accommodations. Okay, so when, for example, if you have a face-to-face class and you have a hearing impaired student, do you have technology in your course? I mean, we provide interpreters, but do you have technology that can also help them that would convert your spoken word to text for them to see that? If you have a visually impaired student, do you have something that could also convert your material into audio, your text to audio? And so those are some of the concerns that they're looking at. Well, when we get into distance learning courses, those students aren't in our classes. So we really don't know. And unfortunately, we don't find out really until after the course has started. You know, the disabilities offices at our institutions can't come up and say, hey, this guy named Mike Jones coming to your class, he's deaf and blind, because they can't reveal that. You know, the student has a choice to self-reveal, but they are not required to. And so what we are doing at our institution is we're asking the disability service just to notify our office we have a hearing impaired student going into this particular section. And so we can go straight to that class and help make sure that they're meeting those accommodations so that everything's been captioned. Or we have a visually impaired, or we have somebody who is unable to use their arms, therefore they need to have another device to help them access. So some of the guidelines under ADA, for example, everything has to be keyboard navigationable. And in our world of touch screens, that doesn't work anymore. You have to still make sure that everything can be done through a keyboard. Everything that is video-based must be closed captioned. And this is even in the face-to-face class. If you show a video in class and then post it online for students to access later, if there's not closed caption, you have violated Section 508. Then all of these other factors as well. So you can just imagine how far this goes when we're dealing with just 508 components. Well, one thing that woke everybody up on 508 is it was published about a year ago that they were going to do a refresh of 508 to bring it up to current standards. And the federal government came out and they said, okay, you have every entity has until January 17th of 2018 to be in 100% compliance. This is all federal agencies and then all agencies receiving federal funds. So when we look at the institution of higher education, who's getting the federal funds? We are. But there's still some concern over, are we classified this way? Are we not classified this way? And so those are some disagreements right now on our community colleges exempt for this or not, our higher education, our K-12 exempt or not. And so there's still something they're trying to figure that component of it. We feel that it's best to be prepared and meet the standard anyway, because the bottom line is the right thing to do, to to make sure your stuff is accessible. Because not only are you serving the disabled student, you're really serving all of your students. It has been shown that closed captioning not only helps those who aren't able to hear, it also helps those who may be dealing with language change, dealing with a second language. It improves vocabulary. For example, let's say you're in a nursing course and all the medical terminology that's coming out, and you're trying to, well, how do you spell that? If they can see it and hear it, they're more likely to remember it, right? It's a whole, tell me, I might forget, show me, I will remember, that type of thing, so tying those in. And so when we look at the areas that are then requiring this evidence, we have, of course, well, and again, the technology, skipping a slide, there it is. Okay, some of the areas that are requiring evidence, this first part here, SACs. I gave you a list, some materials, which is this one here, it's got the colored columns. Okay, if you notice there are two columns on here. One of those says SACs COC, and the other says SACs and OLC. OLC stands for the Online Learning Consortium. The OLC has gone through and they have aligned a checklist for your program evaluation and course evaluations with all of the nation's accreditation agencies. And so not just SACs, but what we have in the Northwest, what we have in the East Coast area, what we have in the Central States. And so making sure it works all the way through. And so you'll see the second column, the ones that are indicated in yellow, those are the ones that are specifically OLC that are not in SACs, but they are in other education agencies. So if you're going towards SARA, this is what you need to make sure. If you notice, there's a lot of color in this column on both of them, on both sides. Distance learning is now relevant to 48% of the SACs accreditation. And it's frightening. Okay? And when you start looking through each of those areas, I mean, this is just a partial listing of some of the areas that we're working in. And so I wasn't able to print all this out for you. But what I did provide for you is this other list that gives you the URLs to every one of the documents and the forms that we use in doing this, and also my contact information is at the bottom of this page, so that you can reach out to me for more questions and help that you need off of that one. Okay. So going back to this, we have, of course, the Department of Education, and they're looking at both the student and the faculty engagement. One thing that is part of the Title IV requirement, in the past, as long as a student logged into the class, they were in the class. That no longer counts. Now they must either submit an assignment or take an exam, engage in a instructor or institutional assigned project or discussion group, and so that's where discussion boards come in, or have emailed their instructor with a course-related question. So now we're even looking at, well, how do you provide evidence of that? So that's the reason that when our institution, we're encouraging faculty to do all email communications through the LMS inbox. We use Canvas, and the Canvas inbox enables you to maintain a log of the communications. And so if it comes back and they need that evidence, then that evidence is there to show that the faculty and student were engaged. Okay. And I know it seems more like Big Brother's looking at them, and so we don't want to look at the content necessarily, but we want to see if those engagement records are there. Then also, one of the ones under that engagement requirement is that if they are on campus, there are also components that they have to verify that they were engaged in the course. So somebody coming and sleeping into the course are not engaged. Okay, and so they've got to be very, very careful in how we look at this. So that's all listed under Title IV, and so you can find some of those for attendance. And again, if you email me, I can send that particular ruling back to you and give you those guidelines. The other one, again, deals with the course definition, which we already mentioned earlier with correspondence courses, and then faculty engagement. We get into then the Department of Justice, of course, accessibility, and the Section 508, which I'd already previously mentioned. Okay. So, some of the guidelines, and I'm just going to pull these up that we can just talk about those and then ask questions. Okay. The first thing is you have to educate your faculty. You can't, I know as a department chair, you just can't go in and say, go do this, because they say, I don't know how. And you got to get that faculty buy-in. One of the issues that we've run into, faculty say, you tell me I'll have to completely rebuild my class, or are you going to pay me to redo it? And I said, no, you get a paycheck every day, that's part of the job. But again, every institution is going to be different. Some institutions do pay for a course restructure, some of them do not. Some people pay, there's one institution that if you're building a new course, they give you one course release. If you are refreshing a course, they give you 50% of a course release. And so that's one reasonable thing, but if your budget's not in there, it's not there. but you still have to meet the guidelines. And so the biggest thing is providing resources, planning it out, and giving them a little bit at a time. Okay, so if you are going to, for example, we're telling people you're going to put a document online, just run the Microsoft Word accessibility checker on it first and fix that. And the same thing with your PowerPoints or your Excel, because it's built-in platform into the Microsoft products. You click on the files, check issues, and there it is. Right. In fact, I'll pull that up here in a little bit and show that to you. The second part is to make sure you're building engagement into the courses. One of the things I did is I recently completely restructured where students must do some type of physical action before they can even see the next item in the course. And so you're sequencing the module and putting requirements on there. So they can't just go straight from the calendar, go to the assignment, do the assignment without having read any of the instructional content. Because you have to show that they received this material, which would constitute your contact hour equivalency. Now, a 3-hour graded course, you've got to have 48 contact hours. And so we're making sure that there is at least some level. Now, we're not nickel and diming it. It's okay, it took 3 minutes to read this for an average reader and it takes 2 minutes to read that. We're not doing that. But the idea is of what the amount of time they would cover. So in my courses, I've incorporated video, readings, and other material. And be very careful also if this is a face-to-face class and what you're putting in there would be a homework assignment, such as writing a paper, then that would be homework also in an online class. That doesn't replace a lecture. And so you're looking at, are you giving readings of instructional content? And then the other activities would go beyond that. A contact hour equivalency is 1 hour in the classroom, 2 hours outside of the classroom. That's how those are measured. And so you need to make sure that there is enough built into the course that students are going beyond just a simple, I can get through this in 1 semester. Or, no, that should be 1 semester, in 1 weekend. Because I've seen some courses like that. I saw one where I could actually have finished the entire course in less than 8 hours. And so we had to take that faculty member and show them how to completely rebuild that course with those instruments. And then a lot of it, again, they don't know. Because so many of us are going into distance learning, we said, yeah, I'll do it. And so everybody said, we'll go figure it out. So we've been going through that struggle. So we're trying to get that consistency and the patterns and the procedure set up with that. And so again, building engagement to where not only are the students having to do something, but also it's set where the instructor at least weekly goes in and posts something to a discussion or puts some type of interaction out there where they are contacting the students. It could be, hey, this week we're going to do this and this and this. I want to go to the suggestion board, throw me your questions here and I'll respond by this time. And again, it's a measure of engagement in there. The third thing on here is one of the big questions in SACS, because distance learning has grown so fast and publishers say, hey, you know what, we have a course pack, you can just plug it in and then here's your entire course. And there are so many of them do that. Pearson has the My Lab platforms, so my math lab, my speech lab, my science lab, my political science lab. And those are complete classes that are set up where you just go in and set the dates on the assignments and it's done. And so one of the SACS criteria that they're looking to evaluate is what is the role of the faculty member if an outside contractor has developed a course. And so that's something else. Are they there simply as the facilitator or are they the instructor? Because if they're the facilitator, why are you paying them a professor's salary? And so that's another big concern. And there's a lot of questions in one of the forms that I've given you access to that gives all the questions that are asked by a SACS evaluator when they're coming in to look at a distance learning course. Of course, building accessibility, and that is everything that you build. If you're going to do video, one thing about this, and it's highly encouraged, don't have somebody go up and videotape an entire class and say this is it. You know, so go home, watch this hour and 20-minute lecture, because students aren't going to do that. The idea is to take your content, chunk it down to no more than 10-minute videos, and to do that either in your office at more of a chat type environment and not in a large auditorium type, again, because you get better sound quality, you get better interaction from that, and students are more likely to fill up their phone between classes and say, okay, I'm going to watch this little 5-minute reminder video for this concept. Okay, it's more of a tutorial type base. You need to evaluate your courses. So many distance learning courses are not evaluated, and there are several groups out there. Quality Matters is one of the most popular. Quality Matters is a nationwide program that goes through and looks at the content of a course to make sure it follows all the best practices that are there. Quality Matters is not it's an expensive program, and it takes a lot of training, and it's very restrictive. For example, if I'm Quality Matters and you're not, I can't tell you what Quality Matters has in it. Those have guidelines, and so we have to be careful with that. Quality assurance is another one that's out there with very similar and similar criteria. What we're using in our institution is the Online Learning Consortium guideline, because the OLC has quite a bit of material out there, and I'll show you guys a resource that we're going to use here in just a minute when I get to this. And then of course you want to go back and evaluate your program. And so when you're evaluating your program, again, use some of the criteria that's on here. If your institution is a member of the Online Learning Consortium, then you can use their checklist, and it's a great checklist to use, or you can use some others, but you need to evaluate the program. Okay? So what I'm going to do very quickly, if this is going to let me do what I'm asking it to do, is try to get this computer online with the meeting again. We should have right here. That's where we're at. And I want to just show you some of the resources that we have for our faculty at our institution. And I'll open up questions as I do this.
So if someone's, while you're answering questions, if someone's teaching a course and they're using My Math Lab though to supplement their face-to-face instruction, then is that adequate instructor interaction and meet those criteria?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm actually glad you asked that question, Barb, because when we're dealing with, hold on just a second, I can't talk
Sure,
about it.
yeah, I know, I wondered about that. I can't do that. It's like her concentrate.
It's still trying to kick out of this. Why is it not taking this? Okay, because we are in the meeting setup.
And then
Oh,
you're sequencing the course. I know a lot of online instructors who open their entire
Class at one time?
class and a student can work at their own pace. They have to go back and participate in discussions if they want those credits. But does, that seems to me that that would be an issue with that. I guess, well, if they open it, no, they couldn't open it all at one time. If they had, well, if you did this and then that and then this and then that.
The problem with a self-paced course
Yeah.
is also classified as a correspondence course now.
Well, that's what I wondered.
And so you can't really say, have this done by this date in the entire course. It needs to be chunked out there to where, okay, you have week one or within this 2 week period, this is done. That's a little bit better because it shows engagement over the length of your semester. But you can't just say, hey, have everything done, because then you have that student who's going to try to get it all done that last week of the semester.
Yeah.
I had a student call me about my speech class and say, hey, yeah, I'm ready to start the class, and it was the first day of finals. He says, I can get it all done this weekend. I said, I don't believe so.
No, I don't even open my next module till the next module. That
Right.
everybody's on the same schedule because it'd drive me crazy otherwise.
Well, my class
Assignments all turned in at different times.
My class is set up to where a student can track through the content, but they have to go through all the modules. But I have exams that are locked at certain times that they
Right.
have to complete this. They have to post assignments by this date. They can't just turn in their speech whenever it appeals to them. They have to have it in by a certain date because other people in the class are having to respond to that. And so it's
Right.
built to have some freedom and flexibility, which is what distance learning is supposed to do, but also it's to maintain the content, the continuity of your course.
Is there requirements for student-to-student engagement, right?
That is one of the pushes, and it's not in SACS yet, but it's coming. And this one is, they're wanting you to show that there is social engagement, because also with our state requirement for social responsibility, that there's a degree of social engagement involved in the course as well. And they're wanting to build communities even outside of your course. So now we have our student organizations, we have our learning centers, our tutoring services, those type of things. So they're starting to look now, are you going beyond just your classroom?
Well, each of our discussions, I make them respond to 3 others. So they post theirs, then they have to respond to 3 other people's posts for that. So that's kind of an easy way to.
Yeah, and that covers it. That does cover it, because the idea.
And I like it. It
They say
really
that
creates
a distance
discussion.
learning student should never be alone in the course.
Yeah, it really,
And
I mean,
that's
what's
the
a
key
discussion
point.
if you don't have interaction?
Right.
Yeah, I don't understand just posting.
Yeah, there has to be a degree of interaction. So one of the things that we've done at our institution, I need to get out of this PowerPoint because it's slowing everything down. Let's get back to the website. Okay, is we put together at our institution our Canvas Center faculty resource. And so it is a place for everybody who works at our institution to be able to go back and get training, to get assistance, get guidance on their specific distance learning questions. And with some of that, we have gone through in some of these resources, we have some of our best practices, and we put these guides that are out there. We don't keep any secrets. We put it out there for everybody to know. our guidelines, our templates, everything we need to have. But one of the things I wanted to show you is this checklist that we are working with now. I'll be able to do this, okay? This checklist is one that is modeled after a checklist that's used by Texas State, which goes along with the OLC requirements. And in that, let's see if can you all see that okay?
Yeah.
Where you are? Okay. So one of the things that, several of the things that SACS will ask us for, first of all, we need information on the course, and we look at what is the format. So web enhanced is a term being used for a class that is your fully face-to-face, but uses this technology resource in the class. Now, one of the requirements, again, that technology resource must be fully ADA compliant if they're going to use it. And so whether it be My Math Lab or whomever, so this goes into more of your procurement also. If you are using current publisher material, they already know that they have to be compliant if they want to keep their customers. And so new material and what they're using now, new editions, those do have what you need to have. If you are using an older edition of your textbook, they are not going to go back and do their legacy material to update that because of the cost. And the cost is expensive. When we even talk about closed captioning ranges anywhere from $1 to $3.50 a minute, depending on what agency you're using. Or if you do it in-house, some people use Google, or they use YouTube, and then they use the auto captioner. Well, that auto captioner in YouTube is why MIT and Harvard were sued, and also Berkeley were sued, because of the accuracy of the captioning. It's no more than 70% accurate, and that's if you are clearly spoken without any type of speech inflection or patterns, and so that becomes an issue. And so you have to make sure that your captions are accurate, and at A&M Corpus Christi, they have somebody who goes into every video that is auto captioned, and she takes the time. She said for every hour of video, it's about 6 hours of caption editing. So it is time intensive. That's the reason also 10-minute videos instead of hour-long videos. Yes?
So what if your institution doesn't have a plan for closed captioning? And I mean, we all use YouTube videos, and that doesn't have that accuracy. What would you recommend?
Learn to edit it. Well, here's the problem too. If it's not your video, you can't edit it.
No, you can't.
You know, but what we have done, and there's the thing, okay, when you are closed captioning a video, if you have another product, or even if you do it in-house, you are not altering the content of that video as long as you're accurate. And so you have that flexibility under copyright. You haven't changed it. Right. You haven't modified it in any way. You have just taken another file and laid it over on top of that to make it more accessible. You would hope that the other person would do that for you. And so our first step of action is for you to contact the producer of that video and request that they caption it. And if they say, oh, we don't want to do that, and you then say, would you give us permission? And you have written permission to do that. And that's why you protect yourself. The other option is, again, to go back and to take that audio track. We use a company called rev.com that we'll send our videos to. I'll send them a URL. And usually within about 3 hours, I've got my captions back. And it's $1 a minute. With either community college system, VCT is working to provide funding for that, so you get a certain amount from them that they will pay for. And the reason I learned about this is a year ago, one of our speech instructors got an email from a student about 10 days into the course and said, I am hearing impaired, and I need all the videos in this course captioned, including all my peers' videos that I'm having to evaluate. Yeah, it was a panic moment, because I contacted our disability service. We did not have any procedures in place to handle that in the digital environment, because they've always handled things in the face-to-face accommodation. And so we had to first get permission from the student to reveal his disability to his team, because they were at least in small groups. At least I was a part there, so I didn't have to go back and caption 25 speeches. It was just the 5 speeches in his particular subgroup. We had to get written permission first from him to reveal. Then we had to get written permission from them to be able to extract their video, submit it for captioning, and then be reinserted back into the course again. Then we had to learn how to do that. Okay? And so that's what I wound up having to learn pretty much overnight. And this is the problem with distance learning. When you receive a request for accommodation, whether it be a face-to-face or an online course, once the date of notification lands, you have 10 days under federal law to become 100% compliant. And so this student came back and said, okay, I need these videos captioned. And we're fortunate that we have built the speech course where we already have captioned the instructional content. And so it was just the student videos, which, you know, you have a 5-minute video, there's $5. And so it was fairly affordable to get that taken care of. But then when we went back, he said, oh, also I need all of the online speech lab videos captioned. Okay, that was a problem because we had a lot of videos in there, and we had purchased an entire pack of instructional videos, and when we purchased it, we got broadcast rights with it. And then we got permission to take those DVDs and burn those to put them in digital format from the publisher. Well, when they were burned, it did not pull over the caption file. And so I had to go back to the original DVDs and reburn them, put them back in, and get those set up, and to make it more accessible. In fact, here, I'll show you real quick what that looks like.
You mentioned you have your ADA office let you know when a student is going to be.
Right, as long as they don't reveal the name of the student, and that's revealed to our Department of Distance Learning. Okay, I just need to know. I said I don't want to know the name. I just need to know that this disability is enrolled in this section of this course in this semester, because we're having to go back and fix everything and repair everything, so I can go straight to that one particular course and help that faculty member bring their course into
Because
compliance.
a lot of our students will wait until even the first week of class to go visit our ADA
Right.
office. So do you have
Well,
a time limit before classes start?
Unfortunately, a student can go in and request accommodations at any time.
Yeah, okay.
And so there is not, oh, you have to have this done by this date to get your thing. They could come in the day of your final exam and say, well, I need accommodations for this exam.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
so you really are under restrictions. We have this online speech lab. In fact, Dell was our director of our lab for a few years, and he does this. Okay, but just to show you how these videos are now set up. When we load our videos, we'll pull up this file here.
Yeah, it's right there.
Okay.
Do you share your stuff in Commons, and if we're in Canvas? can
Some
get it
stuff we
through
put
the
into Commons, not a lot yet, because again, it's the idea of how complete is this.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have our video index. Just pull up the page here and show you these.
You still have to scroll past the index all the way down.
Oh, that's right.
You put
There
the
they are.
index on
Okay.
each one.
Thanks. I did do that, didn't I? You know, I had to bring this up. I invested about 200 hours in that 10-day period to bring this environment and that speech class into compliance with that student. And so my brain just, okay. But now they're saying, here's how you post a video. First of all, you have the transcript. In PDF or Word format, we try not to post Word because anybody has the ability to edit Word. And they said, well, it said this. No, it didn't. Well, my copy says this. And so we try to put things in PDFs that they can't edit, okay? But you post a transcript. Then we post the MP3 audio file, which enables our students to listen to this video and when they're driving or when they're on their phones or between classes or wherever they are. And then we post the actual video so that they can watch this. And that video is closed captioned so that they can watch it without sound, which lets them, again, go into multiple environments and be able to see what they need to do. And so this is what we're working to cover. All of our video content in our institution, this is the target that we have, is to make sure that we bring all that in for that component of the compliance. Because, again, the transcript helps your hearing impaired student. The MP3 file helps your visually impaired student. Okay, and so these are some of our strategies. You're never going to get 100%, but you do the best effort that you can. Okay, so.
Transcribing itself. So, like, if you just transcribe the video, that's not enough. It needs to be an embedded caption.
Yes. Under the new 504, okay, when we go through there, the 504 is based on no, the number's going to miss me. Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG. Okay, WCAG first said, yes, you can just post a transcript of this. Well, then WCAG 2.0 came out. And 2.0 said, well, you probably should do a little bit more than that. And then 2.0 level A, and then level AA, then level AAA. Okay? And each one of those, that top level is so intense that most higher education institutions will never be able to meet that, just because of the criteria. But the idea is that everybody will be under federal guidelines, under the new 508 standards, WCAG 2.0A or AA compliant, which means now you have to have the caption video, not just the transcript. That's the reason we provide both. Okay. And so that's some of the guidelines there. Okay. Any questions on that one before I flip back to the other? Okay. Other things on this guideline then, going back, and this ties back to a lot of what this criteria of all the SACS components work into. So this checklist goes back, and what training have you had? Because under SACS, they want the evidence of the training that your faculty received in order to teach online. They also ask, how does your institution show or compensate your faculty for the additional burden of teaching online as opposed to face-to-face? And so SACS recognizes it's more work to teach online. Okay? Most institutions still do not, especially higher administration who went through brick and mortar problems themselves.
Just keep adding more students too.
Exactly. Okay, so we have, this is the training that we offer at our institution right now. We have a 32-hour designing and teaching online. Oh, I just realized I got a typo, I'm not going to fix that. We have a 32-hour advanced LMS system. We have a copyright fair use, universal design, which means your stuff is accessible to anyone. And then of course all the others. Our video platform is Panopto. And then they provide the course information. Then of course they'll put in the level. Then they start going back through in these components and looking at introductory course materials. And these are all self-reported by the faculty member. Say, I do this. And so that makes it a little bit easier than having to go in and immediately assess. A second tier of this would then be to have a committee or some other group at your institution go back and you evaluate the course going through another level to make sure. But at least this is a way to get your documentation that this course has gone through to some point. And so it looks at the course content. It looks at the learner activities, what type of engagement activities are built in. The communication and interaction, which deals with our student engagement with each other as well. Then the technology, and are the students prepared, and our technology resources. For example, we had one faculty member who has been teaching the same course since 1995, and he has not changed it since 1995. It was built in an HTML platform, and he still requires the students to submit everything in HTML. Students don't really know HTML. And so our guideline is, if you're going to require the technology, build in instructional content on how to use the technology into your course. And so he has just a link to go to an HTML converter, but he doesn't explain this is what HTML is, this is how you do it, these factors. And so that becomes something that, again, we're having to go back and rebuild that particular course. Because if you're going to have students use technology, build it into your course on how to do it. You know, we mentioned in a panel yesterday with the dual credit. And a lot of dual credit now, because of the rapid growth, is being done through distance learning. At our institution, we have over 4,000 online dual credit enrollments this semester. And these students are doing all their work either from a lab at their high school or at their home. This is the population that is least prepared for online learning. Because just because they can turn their phone on doesn't mean they can understand the dynamics of everything else. And so you have to build in components of your class to teach them how to go through. So we build in tutorials on how to use LMS. We put in guidelines on how to submit assignments, all these other factors as well. Then of course we get back to this again, section 6, our accessibility and copyright. Okay. The next level of this, after the faculty member goes this, then this goes up to the department chair. And now the department chair is the one who's going to sign off and says, yes, this course does this. So it can't just be somebody saying, yeah, my class does this. Somebody, the next level up, has to go back and verify and put their name on the line to verify, first of all, that it is accurate, but also that they'll get the institutional support. Because then it goes to the department chair, then it goes to the vice president of academic affairs or the provost, whoever. Because the bottom line is, when that accreditation report goes off to SACS, that's whose name is on the bottom line. And so this is saying, yes, my institution supports this. Yes, I verify that this course meets these standards. So it's a high level. And so you notice that this is a draft right now for ours because we're passing this by our faculty. But it is modeled after one put together by Texas State University, following all of the OLC guidelines. Again, it's frightening when you think about everything that you have to provide evidence for when you go into this, and then everybody. But by having this go all the way up to the top level, you're making sure you're going to wind up with a level of awareness and a level of commitment for distance learning.
Is your office currently going in and re-evaluating? You mentioned some older courses. Are they re-evaluating all the courses that are taught online?
Not yet. And the reason for that is right now my office is 2 full-time and myself is a part-time because I'm still faculty as well.
That's what we've got.
And so we just don't have the man hours to do a lot of this. And so we're hoping to put out these self-report instruments and have the faculty members use a self-report instrument first as our first level. and help them become aware, because they get, well, wait a minute, I don't have this type of interaction built into my class. How do I do that? Well, then that's when we go back to our trainings, or we offer face-to-face training, we offer online training, and then we have our trainers, people train. For example, Dell's one of them. We have a core group of faculty who have gone through every training course we offer, and they now have become mentors throughout the campus. And so if they can't get into our office, they can go to somebody else and get that understanding.
And how is this impacting web enhancement of your face-to-face courses?
The web enhancement, we're still, part of it is teaching people how to use Canvas to begin with. As you know, Del Mar College is in Corpus Christi, and that hurricane came really close. In fact, it flooded the basement in our library, so I couldn't get up to my 5th floor office using the elevator for quite some time. Yeah, fun. I don't like stairs.
Good exercise.
Yeah, it was. I planned my trips. I will go up once, I'll come down once. That's the day. But the idea, when you have an institution that runs the risk of being damaged or shut down based on a natural disaster or a pandemic or a fire or anything that could happen, you have to be sure you maintain the continuity of education. And that's the reason we're asking all of our web enhanced classes to have a Canvas presence, because it's cloud-based, and if a classroom gets shut down, then it can immediately flip to an online. You're still able to provide your resources to your students. And so that's how we do with our web enhanced, and even our hybrid as well too. We make sure they all follow the standard. And so we don't make our web enhanced faculty go through the full extensive training that we have, those go through. But they do a 3-hour training that deals with, again, here's how you use MS, here's the accessibility guidelines, here's pedagogy guidelines, for just having a basic understanding of how to teach distance learning. Because one of the biggest differences between teaching in face-to-face and online, in a face-to-face environment, you are the instructor daily. In an online environment, you are the facilitator, because your course was already built and your instructional content has already been provided. And so you now become the guide to get them through that content. Instead of having to build that road, you're taking them down the road.
I guess the better question is, if you have a faculty member who only uses Canvas, they're required to use Canvas for their grade book, for example, but they don't necessarily post their assignments and things like that on there, then are you requiring all instructors to post their
No.
assignments?
At our institution, we still don't have an overall mandate that everybody will do this, and so they still have their options, but we strongly encourage. So many students are now going to Canvas to figure out what their grades are and to be able to access that. So we ask them to at least have a grade book. Even those that are using the MyMathLab and these other platforms, through the integration tools that we have between the third-party products and the LMS, that grade book can be imported and recorded in the LMS. So therefore, you have your record of engagement.
But if they're just keeping the grade book and they just
If it's
put
just grade book,
quiz 1,
right.
take it in class,
Right.
they don't have to worry about
No,
the
they
ADA
don't have to know.
issues on that.
Well, unless they put video. Again,
No, but if they're just
or
putting
their
like a
content, if
grade
they
book.
build a page, when they even talk about page design,
Yeah.
one of the pages,
Like their front page, their landing page.
right, their landing page and how that's set up. Some of the guidelines on a page, just some basic instructional design. For example, on this section here, we use headers instead of trying to increase font, because a screen reader doesn't determine font size, but it will look at header 1, so it's more important than header 2, header 3, however you have them written down. And then the way you align all your content, your links, you don't just have a URL, you put the actual title of the link, and you don't put click here for this, because somebody who's visually impaired said click where, I don't find this. And so the title becomes a link. And so these are basic universal design strategies. And so somebody who's doing that type of material in a web enhanced class, that's some basic guidelines to follow. Make sure that whatever you do post on a page, be very careful with putting GIFs, because again, those are a violation unless you caption them and have the other parts. We had one faculty member had this flashing red sign going on. Somebody else had those little dancing characters happening. And again, when you're dealing with visual impairment, that becomes an issue. When you're dealing with color, 1 in 8 men of European descent are colorblind, and 1 in 200 women. And so when we look at that percentage and somebody's using color to highlight all their content, somebody may actually not see that. And so it's better to use bold and italics and underlining than it is to have multiple colors. And you don't want to do all 3, because underline can sometimes be seen as a link. And so again, basic universal design strategies, but that's some of the stuff that we try to provide in our training for people web enhancing all the way up to fully online. And so again, it's just a basic structure in there. Let's see if there's something else in here. Maybe this. Okay. And again, we provide best practices. And if you guys want this stuff, just send me emails and I'll download these things and send them to you as well. But again, here's a list, for example, when we talk about accessibility. We just kind of put these out there for people to see. These, when you look at the lawsuits that have gone out dealing with distance learning, this is a very partial listing. But you can just see that these are institutions that have been sued for accessibility. You get nervous yet? Because it continues for many pages. Okay. And here's one thing under that component of it. It doesn't even have to be the student who files the complaint. They can be talking to their cousin in another state and say, yeah, but I'm having a hard time taking this class because I just can't see this, can't access that. That person can call the Department of Justice or the Department of Education and file a complaint, and suddenly you're coming in. If it is an Office of Civil Rights complaint, then they have the option to come investigate. If it is a Department of Justice complaint, you don't have a choice. It is now a federal issue, and they're coming in to look at not just your class, but at your institution and every class in your institution. Right? So it's very frightening. You know, very stressful for people that are in the position that I've been in to figure out where do we get this evidence, where do we get the documentation. I learned a lot of this through a challenge coach, because when I did get placed in this position, it had been vacant for 7 years, and there was no evidence for those 7 years. And we had to have the evidence for the SACS report. So we had to go back and locate, recreate, and redocument 7 years worth of data to be able to get to the SACS report. And so if you are coming up on an accreditation, get started as soon as possible, because you can't have new evidence in a course. You've got to have at least some time in there. They say new evidence is the same as no evidence. And so if your report's going in September, so you started something in January, that's not enough time. You need at least 2 years worth of data to back up your claim that you are doing this at your institution.
Are y'all using the same faculty evaluation instrument for your online as you do your face-to-face?
Yes.
Are you?
Yes. And right now, we have the ability to go back and add additional questions, and we're working on doing that. We have to be careful. We don't want to give evaluation fatigue to students that are doing it. But the next level plan is that, okay, if you're in an online section, you get this additional 6 questions.
Oh, you're talking the student eval.
For the student evaluation.
Yeah, no, I'm talking
Oh, we're talking about faculty
yeah,
evaluation?
Like
Currently,
a
yes.
chair or a peer comes and evaluates your face-to-face
Yes.
course. Do you use the same exact instrument for your online?
Currently, yes, because again, policies and trying to get the change. And this is one of the biggest challenges. You know, the Higher Education Coordinating Board and the legislature came out with post-tenure review component of it, to where even full-time tenured faculty have to be evaluated every 5 years, or is it 3 years? Every 3 years. Okay, where you have another colleague of your same equal rank level come in and evaluate you and do the report. Well, for the first time, we have some faculty that are all online. And so they're saying, well, how do I take what would be a one-class evaluation and suddenly do this in an online evaluation? And so we're having to develop new procedures for that. One of the things that was done recently, in fact, Amy was just evaluated for this a couple of weeks ago. She had the person come in and she walked him through the entire course and the way it was structured and showed him the different components of it. And so he was able to see the layout, the engagement, see the assignments, see the instructional content. And so that's where having a well-developed course can also meet those same criteria. Okay. All right. I've been given the high sign to be silent.
So thank you so very much for attending this panel. Thank you, Mike Jones, for giving all of this valuable information.